Hey, I'm Chris Ralph, the professional prospector, and hey, I'm coming to you today to talk about natural gold and what natural gold looks like. Now, maybe you've wondered, what does gold look like? And you may have an idea in your head, like these kind of rounded, blobby pieces. Maybe you've seen some of those before. And it's true, natural gold does sometimes look like that. But today we're going to talk about some weird and wonderful, strange shapes that natural gold comes in, and the different classes of natural gold and crystalline gold. Did you know that gold forms crystals? It does. So we're going to take a close look at that and delve into all those different things and check it out. So come on along. Let's check out the natural gold.
Natural gold can come in a variety of different forms, and I think that when we take a look at all these different pictures that I'm going to show you, you're going to be surprised at how many varieties of natural gold can be found out in the wild. Now, this picture is kind of what I think most people will think of when they think of natural gold nuggets. They're pieces that are rounded and partly rough and partly smooth, the typical gold type of luster, metallic luster. And here's another picture of some Alaskan nuggets, also very similar, rounded, somewhat rough. And you can see that again, the first picture was from California. This picture is nuggets from Alaska. Let's go and look at a third slide here. We can see here's a bunch of smaller pieces. Number of these are more in the flake type, instead of having a three-dimensional shape like the ones I just showed you. There's a lot of them that are flakes. And, again, this is typically what a lot of people think of when they think of raw gold. Now, our next slide is some rough gold from Arizona. The largest piece you can see is really quite rough. And that means that it hasn't traveled very far. And we're going to take a look at different things and talk about how you can estimate how far gold has traveled based on its appearance. But here's another one, wide, smooth. This is actually a pretty large nugget. There's nothing for scale in the picture, so you can't see, but I think it's somewhere around 7 or 8 ounces. So this is a large, smooth nugget that's thin, and in 2 dimensions it's bigger, and if you could see the thickness of it, you could see it's not very thick, but it's been bent a little bit, probably having been beaten around on some rocks in a river or stream where it was smoothed out like this. Now this next shot is a kind of a rugged nugget. This is the largest nugget from the state of Alaska, largest nugget ever found in Alaska, and was found actually in recent decades by a guy who was working some placer gravel with a bulldozer, and as he was pushing gravel with his dozer, he saw something that caught his eye, and he jumped off the dozer, and well, this is what he found. Now our next nugget here is a smooth nugget, but if you look at it closely, you can see that there's significant quartz in it. There's spots of quartz rock from the vein that was originally hosting this piece. Even though it's now been beaten and smoothed and rounded by years of being tumbled in a stream, still you can see the quartz that was in the original host rock, and some of the quartz has stayed within the nugget. The truth is, most gold nuggets have at least some of this. This one, it's pretty obvious, the quartz, but a lot of nuggets, even if they don't have the screamingly obvious amount of quartz, as this one does, still have some. Now our next slide, we're looking at a rough piece. This is actually a piece of quartz gold where quartz, a lot of it has been eaten off. It's basically been dipped in a special acid. It's hydrofluoric, which is a very dangerous acid, but people do this who know how to handle it safely, and remove some of the quartz to show the gold. You can see here we've gone from the previous river rounded nugget that had a small but certain percentage of quartz. Now we're getting to where the quartz is a larger percentage, but still we're majority gold. Our next slide, we're looking at a specimen from Arizona, and you can see that now the quartz is more than the gold. And actually there's a full range of nuggets, from nuggets that just have a little tiny bit of quartz in them, through moderate, through more quartz than gold, to pieces that are mostly quartz with only a little gold. We'll take a look at that. Here's our next specimen. This is from the famous 16:1 mine in Allegheny, and shows gold sprinkled through cracks and crevices in the quartz rock that was the original host for it. This mine produces a lot of material like this. Our next one is a piece of gold in quartz, where again there's just a small amount of gold in a much larger amount of quartz. But you can see that the piece has been river rounded. It's been tumbled and washed, and the gold has stayed inside the quartz. It hasn't popped loose, hasn't broken the rock. A lot of times when the gold gets in the quartz like this, it's a weak point, a crack, where if the rock gets hit hard as it tumbles downstream, it's a point where it will break and the gold will be freed, and the quartz will then go on as just quartz. Now, this next piece is also from the Allegheny area, from the Oriental mine, and you can see again this is a big chunk of vein quartz with gold liberally sprinkled through it. Now, these pieces of quartz with gold going through it can be made into jewelry, and actually over various times this type of gold in quartz has been very popular. The smooth domed shapes are called cabochons in the jewelry trade, and you can see that these gold quartz cabochons can be interesting and pretty, and they go in and out of fashion. They were highly in fashion in the late Victorian period, in the late 1800s. And these ones, generally speaking, you would like a little more gold in the quartz than is visible in these, but still they can be worth almost the spot weight of the whole cabochon as if it were gold, when there's only, as you can see, a very small percentage of gold in the whole piece of quartz. Now, as I was saying earlier, some nuggets are very rough and rugged, and these tend to indicate that the gold has not traveled a long ways, but has been basically broken loose out of the quartz or out of whatever host rock that it was in, and not spent any significant time being tumbled around in any stream or anything. And these two pieces from Australia kind of show that. It's just very rugged. Here's another large piece from Australia. You can see this is just a gigantic piece with the beer can next to it. You can see that this is the kind of gold that just really hasn't gone anywhere. And finally, in this category, here's some what I call reef gold. This is from Arizona. This is a selection of nuggets that were taken out of a gold vein, and you can see the beautiful but very rough and rugged shape of that gold. On the other hand, there are also pieces that have been a little rounded but not fully smooth. Here's a piece that has had some level of rounding from Australia, but it still shows a lot of the original rough shape as it came out of a vein. Here's another nugget that's been kind of semi-rounded. This is a 7.5 ounce nugget that was found by some friends of mine in California some years ago. And you can see it's been partly rounded and partly still rough. So what that tells you about this piece is that it has spent some time tumbling around in a river, but not a huge amount of time, because it's just not that smooth. It's kind of a mix between the two. And actually, these nuggets are said to have the best character, meaning they have the highest level of eye appeal, and for collectors, that's what sells the most. It sells for the greatest price. Here's another piece that's both partly rounded and partly rough that you can see. And again, these are considered very attractive. Now, here's a piece that's been mostly smoothed. This is the largest nugget ever found in the country of France. It weighs 17.46 troy ounces and was found back in the 1800s by a prospector. It's a beautiful specimen and certainly would be a prize for anyone to find. Here I have a selection of basically your standard rounded nuggets that there's a few, the ones up top that show more character and less rounding, but the bulk of the nuggets down below show how rivers will round these nuggets and produce the normal types of nuggets that people are used to seeing. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at various types of normal types of nuggets that people commonly see and find, both smooth and rough, let's take a look at some really spectacular crystalline nuggets. Here is a set, or actually a group of what they call octahedral crystals. If you look closely, this is the same crystal shape that diamonds form in, and gold and diamond, believe it or not, form in the same crystal pattern. And this pattern is basically a set of, like a pyramid, one right side up and one upside down that are attached at the base, and it forms the diamond shape that you're used to seeing on playing cards. Now, this is considered just a spectacular specimen, and again, crystalline specimens like this sell for considerably more than the gold value that they contain. Alright, our next slide is a slide of a crystal specimen that was found in Arizona, I think it was about 8 or 10 years ago. But you can see, again, the crystal faces that form on the gold. Even though gold, of course, is not transparent, it still makes beautiful crystal faces as the crystals grow in the ground. Here's another specimen of native gold in a crystalline formation. I've got the price on here so you can see how very expensive little specimens like this can be. This thing probably only has not more than $200 or $250 worth of spot gold contained within it, and yet it sells for a considerable amount more than that. Next, I'm showing you some crystal gold, but in a highly modified pattern. This is from Brazil, and gold, sometimes makes nice, clean crystal shapes, but sometimes forms very complex, what they call chevron or V shapes. Sometimes called herringbone because the sides of the V's will interconnect, and you can get very strange and unusual shapes that grow in these types of crystals. And again, these types of crystalline gold pieces are highly prized and sell for much more money than the gold that's contained within them. My next set is a sample of what they call chevron gold. Again, it's this same unusual crystalline pattern that were found with metal detectors in northern Nevada. They make a beautiful set of crystals, and this handful would certainly be something that anybody would be very proud and excited to find, and there's a bunch of really choice specimens there. Here's an interesting set of gold crystals that grew on top of a face of quartz crystals. This is from the famous Round Mountain mine in central Nevada, which produces so much beautiful coarse crystalline gold. Now, it's interesting that the majority of the gold from Round Mountain is the fine-grained, almost microscopic type of gold that is mined so commonly in Nevada. But unlike most of the Carlin-type mines that produce only microscopic gold, Round Mountain also produces some very large, beautiful specimens of crystalline gold, like this. Here's our next slide. This is more crystalline Round Mountain gold. Again, an aggregate specimen, not necessarily growing on invisible quartz, but still a fantastic piece of intergrown crystals of gold. Now here's a piece where we're starting to get into a different shape, and it's actually one of the better known shapes of gold is what they call leaf gold. And these are basically large, thin plates of gold, reminiscent almost of a leaf. Sometimes they have beautiful, intricate dendritic patterns. We're going to look at some of those. And some will have more of a flat growth, more plain growth. But this is one of intergrown crystals and dendrites, again, from Round Mountain. Here is another beautiful crystal specimen from California, again showing this leaf-type structure where it grows out in a large, long, thin sheet of gold. These leaf specimens, of course, sell for quite a bit more than the amount of gold that's in them, just because of their beauty and unique character. Here's another leaf specimen. This one has more smooth growth and not so much the obvious dendritic type of growth that we saw in the last couple of specimens. But again, it's beautiful, and these are really, this is a museum quality specimen of gold. Here's a smaller leaf mass from Arizona, taken with a metal detector in, again, recent years. And this also is just a beautiful piece where kind of different pieces of leaf are sort of glued together in a mass. Another one here is a more dendritic etch type pattern. This is from the famous Breckenridge district in Colorado that's produced a lot of really beautiful gold. Our next piece is, we go back again to Round Mountain. This is a piece of leaf gold with very delicate and intricate dendritic growth of the little crystals of gold. Again, these are museum quality specimens. My next one is basically a specimen of electrum. Now, electrum is a high silver content gold, and you can see by the pale color of this that this natural gold grew with a lot of silver mixed in. And in Nevada, pieces of electrum varying from just a little tiny bit more pale than your average gold nugget, which means there's only a little bit extra silver, all the way to pieces like this that have a very large amount of silver, and therefore the gold is extremely pale in color. Nevada produces a lot of electrum that grades, like I say, from that just a little bit of extra silver to quite a bit. Our next slide is, we're going to take a look at an unusual form of gold called wire gold. This is from Breckenridge, from an area that produced a lot of wire gold. It was actually called the Wire Patch. But wire gold is really found all around the world, and again, it's another highly prized form of natural gold where it actually grows into wires. This next specimen is from Australia, and again shows a mass of wires intergrown and making for a beautiful specimen. This next one is a bit of wire gold from Nevada. This is actually the only one of this presentation that's actually one of my specimens, something that I found personally. It's a 20-gram piece of wire gold that I found in the Nevada desert with a metal detector. Just a really beautiful piece. This next specimen is from Arizona and shows a number of wires more delicately formed in a specimen. It's almost like a bit of coarse steel wool, where instead of having steel, of course, you have wires of gold. And then next is a specimen from Idaho where you have a mixture of basically gold. You can see the beautiful gold there, but the dark gray material is arsenopyrite. It's basically an arsenic pyrite mineral. So it's arsenic, iron, and sulfur that form together, and it's a very common associate of gold in various kinds of gold mines. California, Nevada, elsewhere, but here this specimen being from Idaho. Here is a very special form of wire gold where the wires, as you can see, are all kind of grown together. It's called ram's horn gold. And basically, these swirled, bent, growths of wire are just considered, this is some of the top specimens of gold found in the world. This is a very unusual shape for gold to take, although silver commonly forms in unusual bent wire forms that look a lot like this ram's horn type of shape. Here's another ram's horn specimen. These are both actually from the same location. The last one and this one are from the Gilman district in Colorado. Next, we're going to take a look at basically what is our last category. We've looked at various forms of wire gold. Now we're going to look at mossy kinds of gold. And this is a very common one. A lot of times coarse gold inside of quartz veins will take this sort of mossy kind of shape. And this particular one is from Nevada, but I think the basically iron oxides and quartz have been etched away from the gold to reveal this beautiful gold specimen. Our next piece is a specimen of mossy gold from Arizona, and again this is a piece where a lot of the quartz has just been eaten away to reveal the mossy gold underneath. Our next specimen is of mossy gold where the guy who had these and found them basically used enough acid to completely eat away the quartz so that there was nothing left but the pieces of mossy gold that remained behind. But still, this is beautiful stuff and very unusual and not something that you would commonly see. Our next piece is a mossy gold piece again where the operator has taken away all the quartz and left a beautiful mossy gold specimen from California. Again, a beautiful piece, highly prized. These are all bits of natural gold that you wouldn't want to just melt down into a bar. These are things that should sell for notably more than what the base price of the spot gold is. Our final piece, or at least of the mossy gold, is this specimen from Olinghouse in northern Nevada. This is again a bit of gold that's grown inside a vein, but the vein is not quartz. The white here is a mineral called a zeolite. It belongs to a family called zeolites. And actually zeolites are a number of different minerals, but this particular one, the zeolites are much easier to eat away than quartz, and the owner of the specimen has eaten away a lot of the white zeolite, leaving a very delicate and fragile kind of aggregate of little crystals, which is basically what the mossy gold is. An aggregate of little tiny crystals welded together by how they grew. And this kind of specimen is just very delicate, but it's again one of the more expensive ones. My recollection is, looking at this piece, I think there was probably something on the order of half an ounce to 3/4 of an ounce of gold here, which at today's price would be something on the ballpark of about $1,000. And this piece was offered for sale at a mineral show for $45,000, 45 times the value of the gold it contained. Again, this is a retail price, and if you were selling to a mineral dealer, you would get the wholesale price, not the retail price. But still, worth considerably more than the gold that it contains. So finally, after taking a look at all this different gold, I hope that I've managed to infect you with a little bit of gold fever. Gold fever is not necessarily dangerous in any way, but it certainly can be contracted. It certainly is contagious from people who are excited and by looking just way too closely at beautiful specimens of gold.
Well, what's kind of interesting with that is that all that gold that you saw, all that stuff is stuff that people have found. Most of it has been found in recent years. Within the last, 10, 15 years, most of that stuff really is a relatively recent finds that I've showed you. Now, if you want to join the people that are out there finding gold, like me, then I think that you need to know more. Prospecting and finding gold is a skill, and it's a skill that you learn. And in order to teach people all the skills and knowledge that they need to know to find their own gold, I wrote a book. It's called Fistful of Gold, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it right now. So let me tell you a little bit more about my book. It's called Fistful of Gold, and I wrote it because I want you to be able to go out and find for yourself fistful of gold. And you can see that it's an encyclopedia with all kinds of information, pictures, and that sort of thing. It's not in color, but color would have cost me a lot more to have printed, and so the book would have cost a lot more. It's for sale on Amazon, and you can pick it up. I'll put a link in the description below. I also serve as the editor for a prospecting magazine. It's ICMJ's Prospecting and Mining Journal. And honestly, you should check that out. We got stories and information, legal stuff, everything you know to increase your skills as a prospector. I write articles in this every month, and a lot of other very experienced prospectors contribute to the magazine as well. So check the magazine out. Also, I have a website, and the website is at NevadaOutbackGems.com. I'll put a link for it in the description below, but there's gobs of information there that you will find useful in your prospecting efforts. Finally, I want to say that I really appreciate your comments and thoughts, and even positive criticism. Don't come on there and just toss out insults, because I'll just delete your comments. But if you've got helpful things to say and questions to ask, do write and put those in the comments, because I answer my comments to people, and you'll hear from me in responding to you. So if you've enjoyed this video and you like what you see and you're interested in finding out more, well then sign up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so they'll let you know when I post new videos. And like it and share it if again you see stuff that you really are excited about. And I'll be coming out with lots more new videos, and so we'll see you again real soon.